All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for braving the weather, coming out today in this Michigan snowstorm that we're having continually. For those of you who are new, thank you for coming. Those of you who have been here before, thank you for coming again. As many of you know, this is a vibrational orchestration of everything and everybody who's here. So we're going to be bringing in a lot of messages today, a lot of guidance today. We're going to take questions today. And for those of you who are new, we start off with a little lecture introduction. If you're not familiar with me, there are many YouTube channelings out there that I give my introduction about my journey to channeling, who I am, what I've done. So feel free to look those up. I'm not going to go through that in detail today. But I am a channel, and that's why we're here. We're going to be working with a variety of different guides, teachers, masters, collective forms of consciousness. I work with many. And as I start off today, I want everyone to know that this is an interactive session. So it's not just me up here speaking, teaching, channeling, doing what I do. I really want to hear from all of you because we're in a beautiful, beautiful time right now on the planet where so many people are coming into their awakening. And I have the distinct pleasure of meeting many of those people in my session work. And I can tell you for sure that times are changing. And everyone on the planet, not everyone, but most of the people that I'm connected with in this time are bringing that unique aspect of themselves to the surface and expressing something very creatively. So I want input from you. I want to hear what you're interested in talking about, what your experiences are, because it just helps all of us to understand better, who we're becoming as a collective. So feel free. Input, ask questions, raise your hand. Here we are at the end of 2017, and this has been quite a roller coaster year, I feel like, for many of us. I just came off silent retreat. So last weekend, I took 3 days of silence, no eye contact, meditation, yoga, mindfulness. I walked in nature. I had a lot of books with me. And it's a practice I brought into my life that's been so transformative for me. And where my mind started to go immediately was, what am I going to do next? 2018, what didn't I accomplish this year that I need to accomplish next year? And how am I going to do that? And what I came to realize in those 3 days was how we are always so far ahead of ourselves all of the time. We don't spend time to think and reflect on who we're becoming, what we've become, what we've been through, what we've gone through, where we're at in this very moment. And that led to this whole chain reaction from my guides and, connections I was making about this journey we're on collectively, where we're at today, where we've been, and where we're going. And it's almost like this smaller fragment, that thought of, oh my gosh, what did I not accomplish? Where do I need to go? It became the whole theme of looking back at what we've been through on this journey here on the earth and where we're going. And so I want to relate some of the things that came into me about that and kind of draw in my work, almost like a culmination of what we've been receiving from the guides here this past year, and just solidify where we're at in this moment before we go launching forward, into next year. And my wish for all of you is that you do that you spend some time in reflection just in this current moment, not thinking about how you're going to dig yourself out of something, how you're going to expand something you didn't do, but where you are right now and what's good in your life, where you've come, what your identity is now, how it's changed. Because for me, that was profound. So what I was reflecting on in silent retreat is, of course I came with questions about myself, is, wow, here on the planet, we're going through this major shift, this transition. There's a splitting of timelines taking place right now. We have a lot of people that still are, walking through these old timelines, these old imprints. Many of us are. What do we need to know about that? And how is that connected, to some of the information I've been bringing in? Because it seems like to me, back in the beginning of the year, 2017, we were really walking this turbulent soul transition. A lot of us were going through very quick vibrational shifts. And some of the themes that were coming through were relationships and physical health and the way we chose our work, especially, and how we limited ourselves. And I think so many of us came through that realizing that we're so much more than what we were taught we were. And a lot of those limiting beliefs that held us back were the catalysts for how we crafted our lives. We were looking at everything, where we live, who we chose as partners, how we were creating, how we were working. And then all of a sudden, we had this solar eclipse in August, and leading up to that, a lot of planetary issues, right? A lot of the focus became collective, even leading up to August. And we had a variety of planetary alignments that were so purposeful in shifting our focus into that arena. And I believe the reason for that is we began to see truly what's happening on our planet that's causing all this stuff that we looked at here at the beginning of the year, right? We raised our vibration, we looked around, we thought, wow, this isn't working for me anymore. This isn't who I am. This is limiting for me. And then we had to look out on the planet and say, what is it that's limiting me? What's going on here, right? History's been the chronic theme this year. And really, I believe it'll always be the chronic theme because we're operating in history constantly. We think that we're creating things anew and we have new ideas, and we do. We're expanding on information, but there's always a catalyst, right, for that information. We have this divine record we carry with us. That divine record is collective, and it holds all of these fragmented aspects of who we've been through time. So these fragmented aspects of who we've been have been coming back to us slowly but surely through time. When we look out at the collective, we can see a lot of these fragmented aspects coming back up again too, right? We see it with the whole male-female thing we have going on the planet right now. We see it with weather events and weather patterns, things that we've experienced here before. Why is this happening? Well, that was a question I went into my silent retreat with. Where am I going next and why? How are we going to resolve all of this? So what I was told, and this connects to a lot of the things that I've been bringing in, was, and for those of you who are at the expo, who were listening to my channeling at the expo, there's a great question that came in about divine masculine and divine feminine. And someone asked, what really is this? Can you define this for us? And the guides brought this beautiful dissertation through about the masculine being the mind, the organism of the mind represented as the masculine energy, the female energy being the emotional body. And that what's happened here is we've been so directed into the mind in that male dominant energy that we're always thinking ahead. We always have to plan. There's a structure we have to follow, right? And the mind isn't necessarily a negative thing. It's not a bad aspect. We need that male frequency. We need that male energy. It helps us to create and make, energy physical. But many of you know the work that I do focuses on a reptilian consciousness that exists here on our planet. Now, remember, this is a consciousness, okay? Do we have reptilian beings that exist here, hybrid reptilian beings? I believe we do. I believe that we all have aspects of that reptilian DNA that we hold within us. Some of us are far more advanced in our reptilian DNA. That's not a bad thing either. I think reptilian beings can be very benevolent and loving. But we found ourselves in a situation vibrationally where we magnetized this consciousness to the earth. So we have this history. And this history involves a reptilian collective that went through a very turbulent time. And as they went through that turbulent time, we magnetized the essence of the aspect that couldn't survive in that timeline. Just like we're going through a timeline split right now, these reptilians went through a timeline split. But because we were focused in the mind through a lot of programming, religion, teachings, things like this, and we were very male-focused in the mind, the reptilians are a very mind-driven organism. They have actually integrated aspects of their structure that allow them to manifest through the mind. Which, imagine that. That's a beautiful thing. It's actually an advantageous aspect. Sometimes we talk about the reptilian mind as something really negative. I don't see it that way. I think that we've been twisted into using it in a negative way. but actually it's a very positive aspect of who we are. So the reptilian consciousness, or the reptilians, they create through the mind very easily. They can have a very, beautiful, benevolent thought as a collective entity and manifest that and shape shift and do all of these things. But what's happened here for us is that reptilian mind has become the organism through which we filtered our reality, because we became so influenced by their presence. And there have been many on the planet who have taken on that DNA imprint of them, that are functioning through them, that have created things that have held us in this mental-driven focus. And we look back at even just our upbringing here as a child, religious teachings we were exposed to, the way we were brought up through schooling, education, all of these things. We were taught to use the mind to always think ahead. Okay, you got to get a good grade on this test, because if you don't get a good grade on this test, you're not going to pass the class. And if you don't pass the class, you're not going to go on to the next grade. And if you don't go on to the next grade, you might not get into college. They're going to hold you behind. And if you don't do good in college, you're not going to get a job because you don't have a degree. And I was like, wow, that's exactly what my mind is doing. Here I was in silence, and my mind was so far ahead on this reptilian train of what do I do next, that I couldn't bring myself into the present moment. As a matter of fact, I couldn't even calm myself down because the silence was so stark around me and my mind was taking the lead that I was ready to jump out of my skin. And I just was the observer of this, and I thought, wow, this is really the microcosm of the macrocosm here. This is who we are as a human race. And this is exactly the trajectory that we're on to change, right? So we can talk about this in a lot of complicated terms. We can talk about the chakras, which I'll talk about in a while. We can talk about Mother Earth and crystalline DNA and all of these things. But really, just to break it down, the shift we're going through when we talk about Christ consciousness, divine feminine, is the emotional body. It's compassion. It's love. It's actually seeing the mind in a new way. And so in a lot of my work, the guides have brought up the emotional body almost as a frequency, a tool that we were given to navigate through our dimensional reality. And we often don't use it that way. We allow the mind to take us on the journey of whatever emotion must follow where the mind is taking us. But in reality, those emotions are meant to be felt, understood, expressed so that we can use the mind in concert to really create what we're doing here, what we're all about, what our imprint holds, who we're becoming. This whole essence of creation is what we're walking into in 2018. And I feel like everything that's happened here, collectively, singularly, where we find ourselves in this very moment, was preparing ourselves to lead into a lot of change here on the planet. And I just did a channeling on this for my my monthly program. I have a monthly Inner Circle program that people subscribe to, and I offer a monthly channeled video. And I just did that channeling last week. And there was a lot that came through about what we're going to see changed in 2018. One of the things that I think is going to be the most stark change for us is moving from physical to non-physical. And when I say that, we're not leaving our bodies. We're not losing our bodies. We're actually learning how to be in our bodies and integrate the non-physical aspects of who we are. And that's really tricky, and it sounds really hard. But there's some subtle examples and things that have been coming into my sessions with clients that I want to share. And I have a lot. Like we were just talking before we started here. I have a lot of clients who are doing just amazing, amazing things, just incredible things. But they're coming to me in session and they're so blocked and so frustrated because they're forcing it through the mind. And so the subtle difference that has been brought into my session work is, where people are saying, how am I going to market this? How am I going to get the following? How am I going to get the people? The subtle shift in the divine feminine is, what are the pathways or avenues for my expression? what pathways are available to me, right? It's a different way. It's almost like a subtle shift in consciousness away from that male dominant energy of how am I going to do, how am I going to get, how am I going to achieve, to what are the pathways? Who am I? What am I here to express? How can I create this in a way that's bigger? Right? How can I expand my creative energy? Because female energy becomes the catalyst for how we're going to walk through this really interesting and I think exciting time on our planet. Because we can't approach it that way anymore. Even in our relationships, we can't say, why is this person doing this to me? We have to say, how are we creating this together? And we can just take the example of the whole male-female thing that's going on our planet right now. Why is that coming up again? Because we've solved it or forced it through a male-dominant frequency. So it's got to come up again for us to approach the female aspect of this, which is, how are we in this together? How are we creating this together? How are we going to solve this together? Separation as we know it is becoming a different aspect of our reality than what we thought. You know, we've been used to being in these hierarchies of separation, male, female, government, you know, individual, all of these things. We've lost our sense of connection. We've lost our sense of sovereignty. But we're beginning now to realize that seeing everyone as ourself is the pathway to change. And that's a really hard thing to do when we're on the other side of trauma and wounds that we've carried through time. A lot of those traumas and wounds that our mothers and their mothers and their mothers and their mothers have gone through. But the question becomes, why are we still going through it? We obviously haven't solved it in the right way. We haven't approached it in the right way. We haven't had the right frequency, right, to change the dynamic, because patterns repeat. So we haven't been able to shift that pattern. But this is what I believe we're truly walking into, is shifting this pattern in a more female-dominant energy. So some other things that were coming in for me, because my work has been gravitating more towards Christ consciousness as we go into 2018, is how that all relates. You know, how does divine feminine relate to Christ consciousness? How does reptilian energy? You know, that was my question. I said, you know, I thought I was here to teach people about reptilians and what they're doing on their planet and how we're going to resolve that. Why am I going to start moving into Christ consciousness? And I was told, you know, it's really one and the same. You know, it's all within us. These reptilians exist here because it's a part of us. We are God. We are reptilian. We are male. We are female. We are, you know, all of this. And until we begin to realize that, we're not going to shift it. So everything that we're talking about here about this reptilian consciousness and vibration and all that stuff, it's really the same as Christ consciousness. But at the same time, I believe that in 2018 we have a really unique opportunity. This has been coming through in my channeled writings in my book as well as in my work. So many of you know Mother Earth, living, breathing organism being, has chakras, energy fields, right? All of this stuff that we have. What I've been told is there's a unique code within Mother Gaia that is going to be triggered in 2018. We talk a lot about ascension codes in my work. We have ascension codes within us. These codes are triggered by planetary alignments, and they are tied to intentions we have to expand. Sometimes we call this karma, right? Sometimes we call this turbulence and change and transition. But it has to happen in order for us to continue to grow. So this very unique female Christ consciousness, crystalline, energetic code within Mother Gaia is already being triggered right now, but will become full, I would say full in its capacity in 2018. And this is offering us a unique opportunity. The Christ timeline, as the Christ walked the earth, had a specific intent or purpose, and Mother Gaia called that intent or purpose forward. So I have some really great channeling for those of you who take my Lightworker courses about why Mother Earth commissioned the Christ timeline, the agreements that she made to bring the Christ to the earth. It was an important time for her because she saw the separation that was taking place from God. She saw how disconnected humanity was from source, and it was expressing itself on her, within her. So she almost brought this timeline together. I say almost, she did bring this timeline together for humanity to shift its focus. And as the Christ was here as a master teacher, he embedded those codes of his walk, of his journey into the earth to be revealed and activated again. And this is exactly what we're walking through. And this is how we're going to shift all this stuff. What is Christ consciousness? Quite simply, it's not the mind. It's not the emotional body. It's the integration of the two. It's the realization that there's nothing out there that has to do anything in order for me to be at my highest and fullest intent or to source what I need. So back to that analogy, we've been taught that we have to get the grade, we have to get the degree in order to get the job, in order to make the money. Christ consciousness doesn't work that way. Where we're heading is a new grid system. This new grid system is multidimensional. It connects to the universe. When we are in a 3D matrix, when we're in a 3D reality, that reality doesn't connect to universal support. It's limited in its perception. It holds itself separate of. It thinks that it has to create for itself. So we have a disease, and we think, I got to figure it out. I got to find the doctor. I got to find the diagnosis. I have to take the medicine. I have to do the work. If I don't do it, I failed. Still have this disease. I did something wrong. That is not Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness is knowing that everything that manifests because there is a solution for it, because there is a purpose to it, and that we don't have to figure it out. We just have to be in that state of abundance, of reality, of identity, that we are the Christ energy, that we're an aspect of God, to know that we're supported, right? It's a flow. It's not a force. It's not a male energy. It's a flow. And that's why the female is really coming in, right? We have to tune into those emotions to feel the way that our mind is causing us to disconnect. And that's what it's really there for. It's not that we're not supposed to express emotions. Emotions are like, the guides say, almost like the calibrator of our structure. We have something sad that happens to us. We express the sadness and we're recalibrated back to the present moment. We're upset about something. We express the anger. We're recalibrated back to the present moment. But because our mind has been focused in the future, focused in the past, we've been using these emotions in a way that we hold on to them and we revisit them. So we've been in a pattern here that's held us back from source energy. It's held us back from that multidimensional grid. It's held us back from sourcing the way that we're really meant to source. So we're rediscovering our sovereignty here. Just how free we really are, and just how supported we can be in that freedom. And this is becoming the choice, because this free will that we came to experience, it allows us that choice. So I want to make a couple quick points about what's been happening here on the planet and some questions I've had about that, because we know that Mother Earth has raised her frequency, and we've had a lot of turbulence in adjusting to that frequency. We know there's a new grid system that's been installed. That new grid system is a multidimensional grid. It receives support from the universe. It's not limited in its availability to us. We also have experienced here a leveling off of frequency or vibration between all humans. And that's a tough one for people to accept. How can this guy be vibrating the same as that guy? There's no possible way. Remember, this is connected to free will. So we can hold the same vibration as somebody and the same capacity to awaken and receive, but not choose it. This is where the mind and the emotional body are so critical, right? It's that subtle shift that allows us to accept the opportunity that we've been given. It's our ability to see ourselves in the present moment to allow that shift to take place. So the present moment frequency is really what I had to come into in those 3 days of silence in order to not continue to jump out of my skin, in order to find the comfort, and receive what I needed to receive. And, we're so inundated, I say this a lot, with things outside of us, with social media, with live Facebook events and Twitter and all of this other stuff, the news. When you step away from that, even just for an hour, that frequency can change really fast and put you back in the present moment. And that's really where it all happens. So I received a lot of understanding about where we're going, a lot of what we're shifting. And what I want to say about this new grid system, the divine feminine, and this code within Mother Earth is that it's all related. It's all preparing us to move into this new dimensional reality. So the dimensional split of timelines, and the way we've been talking about that this year, we have to consider that, we can have this higher vibration, we can have a high consciousness, we can be very awake and aware, but we can still let the mind filter our experience through the masculine energy. And we can still hold ourselves back from receiving the resources and the abundance that are truly a part of what lies within that divine record. So a lot of energetic shift coming up for us, a lot of choices to make. Speak for a minute about the chakras and the plugins and all of this stuff, because that's been a really prominent thing that's gone on in 2017 that I think will continue in 2018. We have an integration right now going on in a lot of different areas energetically. Talked about history. We have a lot of history coming up from the planet, history, Akashic history coming up for us. This is the advantage of that new grid. That new grid system, it allows us to tap into multidimensional history. So a lot of us are re-experiencing things from our Atlantean past, our Pleiadian past, the gifts that we came with. They're showing up in very unique and expressive ways because of this timeline. I call it timeline convergence. We're going through this timeline convergence. And some of us have felt like there's so much information, we don't even know which way to go. We don't know how to choose the path that's best for us. What the guides are saying is just subtly move your energy. Subtly move it towards, because it all collapses on top of itself. We're used to seeing things very linear, very narrow. Multidimensional energy doesn't work that way. It considers who we've been through space and time, who we are now, and who we're becoming. So it's not just one thing, it's many. The essence of Mother Earth, that crystalline core that we often talk about, is so available to us because we've gone through this really significant plug-in in 2017. So as we've plugged into this crystalline core of Mother Earth, we've been activating the chakras beneath the root. There are 3 chakras that sit beneath the root that have been activated. They're very significant chakras for us creating in physical. And we don't think about ascension that way. We think, I'm on this ascension path to, bring in all of this intuition and guidance and create. But this plug into Mother Earth, it's really sufficient to help us embody the upper chakra stuff, because we have to have balance there. The stuff that's coming in and the stuff that we're expressing, the offering, the receiving. So those have been a significant aspect of how we've been plugging in. Integration of the chakras, the energy fields of the chakras, and I've seen this in many of my client sessions. We're starting to use those energy centers as one. They're becoming more cohesive, almost like the crystalline core of Mother Earth. We're developing this crystalline core within us again. And that crystalline core is helping us to be more telepathic, to be more empathic, which has been a tough transition for a lot of people, and to also integrate the higher self, which has been a very critical piece of what we're doing. We have 3 separate crystalline containers we operate in. Our soul container, which is our singular expression. It's our families, our contracts. It's here in singular what we do as a focused linear timeline. We have a higher self container, which is planetary and collective. This is our one connection to all things. That's what we're connecting with right now. That's the integration that we're going through. And then we have an oversoul container, which is multidimensional. And that piece holds our multidimensional history, connects us to the universe. So Mother Earth is more supported than ever before. This grid is stable. There are portals open that are allowing new beings, new guides, new collectives to come in and assist us. So we have more multidimensional support here for ourselves and others than ever before. We're undergoing a huge timeline convergence, which is a positive thing, even though it feels a little overwhelming and confusing at times. I think as we move into 2018, we're going to sort all this out. The key to sorting it out, divine feminine. Present moment, emotional body frequency, tuning into that, making sure that you're staying in that present moment, not jetting out into the future, not going into the past, not using old paradigms, old programs to filter new ideas through, because that's where we're getting stuck. Filtering new ideas through old paradigms. Questions, comments, anything anyone wants to talk about this year, next year, things coming up? Okay. I have about 10 minutes or so. If there are no questions, I'll probably channel a little bit earlier than what I thought. So what we do here, for those of you who are new, is I channel in a group of guides, collectives who are best suited for this room and beyond, because we film today. We bring in a general message. So we'll bring in something that's best suited for you to realize that's important as we're going through our Earth transition. And then I take questions. So I have pens, I have paper in the back. Ethan will pass those out. We write those down so I get them on the camera and so that everyone can hear the questions, because those who watch on YouTube will want to hear what those are. And as these guides come in, we are experiencing a vibration here. It's not just about the words. It's not just about what we're answering in the questions. It's about what we're receiving in the vibration. So if you're not able to hang in there with the lingo or you get a little lost in the words, it's okay, because you're receiving everything that you need to receive in the vibration. All right? Any questions about the process? What I do? Anything? Yes?
So sorry, I came in a little late.
That's okay.
And I think we were doing a quick review.
Yes.
And I was just wondering, is there anything else I missed?
Oh, about the planet. I'm not sure where you came in. That's okay. That's okay. Just know that I think that, a lot of us, I guess the key message I'll bring through about 2017, just to sum it up, is I notice a lot of people lost a lot of faith, right? Because we went through some turbulent times here within in our own reality. We saw it happen in the collective. A lot of collective history density came up, weather events, right? Things like this. Everything that we went through was a preparation for where we're going. And think about this for a minute in your own life. We know we have astrology, we have planetary energies that connect with our codes, and we have transitions we walk through. Our life can change in a minute. Things can fall apart. And usually the reason that happens is because our vibration changed and because we're ready to create something different. But we don't like when that happens. We don't like to revisit old patterns and programs and history and all that stuff. It's not comfortable for us. I really believe that what we've gone through here in 2017 is evoking or calling forth that divine feminine, because it's, again, it's coming from the earth. There's a code embedded in the earth that has been triggered and will fully be triggered in 2018. But we had to have events to set the stage for us to actually embody that divine feminine. Because we can talk about this stuff all day. We can talk about Christ consciousness. We can talk about crystallized DNA and chakras and all this stuff. But it doesn't really mean anything if we don't know how to walk through it in our day-to-day life. And so, divine feminine, the embodiment of compassion, it's the I am in you, the you are in me, the eternal holographic mirror to male and female. It's creating a divine balance. It's making sure that we understand it's not just about what other people are doing to us. It's about what we're creating with other people. And I think that some of those events that came up are evoking us to respond in a really compassionate and loving way differently than what we did before, because, we can choose that mental response of anger and fear that we've had through time, right? We can be angry and we can be in fear. There's nothing wrong with that. But we have to, I guess, what the guides want to say is, realize our vibrational responsibility to how we're collectively creating the future of humanity. And that's why Divine Feminine is so important. Because when we allow the Divine Feminine, the compassion, the love to be a part of our experience, that is going to overflow into everything that we touch, every relationship that we have, everything that we do. And that's what's required, right? It's not just about what's happening out there. It's about how we're walking through what's happening out there with each other. That's going to cause the shift, right? Make sense? Yeah. Okay. All right. So Ethan will pass out cards and pens for anyone who needs them. And I am going to go ahead and start channeling. I do want to mention that we are here with the Flower of Life Center. We are a volunteer organization, and we offer all of our events free of charge here locally. And the way we support that is through donations. If you are able to donate, great. If you can't, that's okay. We use the donations to pay for this room, and anything over goes into our other programs. We have many programs, including a youth program, conscious activism, movement, variety of different magazine things that we do. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Sometimes we get vibrational processes and activations. If we get those, we'll always explain how to walk through those, sit, breathe, all of those things. And I twitch and move a little bit when I channel. It's just the difference between the vibration of the beings that are speaking through me and the vibration that we exist in here in physical. Greetings, we are the Pleiadian Collective. We are very pleased to enter this vibrational transmission in harmony and love and peace. We are connected with all of you through this vibration in such a way that it is our intention to lift yours as well. Every frequency that is a part of the vibrational transmission that is offered is embedded within you and integrated by you in order to create a change. So understand, please, that when these transmissions come through and these communications are offered, they're always attuned to exactly where humanity is in the moment and exactly what is needed to support humanity in its further transition. We are pleased to begin with an analogy of the way in which we see your current vibration on the planet and the way in which we believe Mother Earth will also be transitioning as you walk through a series of solar integrations that are assisting you in bringing back aspects of your past timelines. Humanity as a one has been interconnecting more solidly in the past several linear months. There are many reasons for this that we can engage. Those reasons are not especially important to review, but we would say that they have much to do with the way in which humans have been perceiving their reality. We have always been very strong proponents of you accepting that your perception is a valuable tool of the way in which you create both your collective and singular soul reality. What we have noticed is that as many of the vibrational shifts have taken place here, many of the planetary alignments that have come to engage your chakras and attune your chakras, many have begun to perceive their reality differently. This perception can often be skewed in the way that it is allowing ascension to take a course that is of most benefit to humanity, even when your consciousness is raising. We want to allude to some aspects that we believe are skewed that can assist you to hone that perception. You have come very far in the way that you are looking out and reflecting into the collective and the events that take place there. But we now want to assist you in understanding there are a set of cooperative components that allow that perception to become further aligned with Source, to strengthen this collective union of humans and actually strengthen your Mother Earth Gaia planet. We want to start with the analogy of many of the weather events that have taken place on your planet. Especially of late, there have been fires and disasters, some of those very human in their nature, others affecting the natural resources of Mother Earth. As you've perceived these events as a collective race, there's a measurement of that perception that can be analyzed by beings such as ourselves. And you may wonder, why would you wish to take a measurement of the way we are perceiving our collective reality? Well, this measurement allows us to project into future timelines, to see how humanity is creating such that it is beneficial to the universal time grid, meaning that other races, other star systems, and planetary structures will receive the benefit or perhaps receive discordant information from what humanity is creating. Now, as many of you have shifted your consciousness, you have begun to perceive many of these events on your planet as being man-made. That there is a group of people, perhaps on your planet, that are creating falsely events on your planet that are perceived to be true. And that these events are very detrimental to humanity and have an intent to limit humanity in the number of beings that currently exist here on this planet. We want to break this down for you in a way that helps you perceive differently, because this perception is not wrong. It is actually a higher knowing of the way in which your collective reality is operating. But the response to that perception can be the catalyst for you creating potential timelines that are not in harmony for humanity or for the universe. Let us start with the way many of these chain reactions take place. There is a spark, a small event, a notion, something that takes place on your planet that many are announcing to humanity as a potential disaster. That potential disaster may be very contained, and it may have erupted from a timeline event that was historic. How is it that human beings find themselves in the same place at the same time to experience these traumatic events? Well, of course, by agreement. All of you have made agreements to be here in this physical reality. Those agreements were not to suffer. But as you have honed and shaped your own timeline energy, you have taken yourself on a journey or a path to magnetize very similar beings with similar intentions to your reality. Could you consider for a moment that the community that you exist in, those that live closest to you, actually hold similar intentions? Regardless of how they are reacting to their collective reality or their singular reality, embedded within them, there are similar magnetic tools that align your frequencies to be in physical at the same place and at the same time. So one of these events now takes place, and it is announced to humanity, and humanity begins to perceive and define it through their perception. Perception is a frequency. It is not just receiving, but it is offering. This is important to note, because every time you make a judgment, a definition of something in your reality, that judgment, that definition, that perception is offered by you as a frequency. So as human beings, collective human beings, are tuning into this event, they are perceiving its history. They are perceiving its creation. They are also projecting it through time. Now, what came first, we ask? The event or those that may have conspired the event? Because in your perception, the point we have made is that many of you are seeing the fact of your reality that there are man-made events that are taking place. This is also an orchestration. There has been much conversation today in this space about reptilian consciousness, divine masculine and divine feminine. Now, there are many here on this planet that operate within their crystallized DNA. That crystallized DNA is a closer relationship to information from your multidimensional history. All of you are at varying degrees of DNA crystallization. Some have a crystallized DNA that is reptilian in form. Because of the close proximity of the reptilian consciousness to the earth, they are taking on directives of that reptilian consciousness to create manifestations here on this planet that direct your consciousness further into their state of being. Their state of being is a singular structure operating through the mind. Your singular structure has also been trained to operate through the mind, yet you are not singular at all. Now, these beings have also undergone an orchestration. They find themselves carrying out imprints, but those imprints are driven by humanity. So if humanity perceives a specific outcome and they are in fear of that outcome, there must be a complementary aspect of your reality that matches that fear vibration. Meaning that if we're projecting through time an event of fear, we now have a moving train of vibration in which cooperative components must get on board for the journey. And those cooperative components very well may be those beings that are crystallized in their reptilian DNA, providing more of what is needed in order to match frequencies here. Through universal law, frequencies must be matched. You are a vibrational magnet to creation. Everything that is God in your reality is offered to you to find God within yourself. Meaning that whatever you are attracting in this moment into your experience exists such that you find your relationship back to God through creation. Does God exist in these events? God must exist in these events. But God doesn't exist in the fullness of your perception when you are trying to create a pathway to blame or to hold responsible a group of individuals who are only reacting energetically to a frequency. So in order to upgrade the energy of your perception, it is possible to be aware that many of these events are man-made. But it is critical to understand that those that are making the events are vibrational in their structure, and that you are also vibrational in your structure. And that in every calling there is a response. In every creating there is a manifestation in physical. So let's go back now to the collective energy, the planet. Your planetary structure, Mother Gaia, offering to you a new vibration, a new consciousness, a new relationship to mankind and to humanity. She is also a creator. She also has intentions. And she collaborates with a star system, a universal planetary structure that revolves around her for the benefit of her record. She finds herself now in a new location in the solar system, using many of these planetary energies to benefit the perception of mankind. Yet some still holding an aspect of their free will in resistance to this abundant change are further manifesting what you are seeing historically erupt here on this planet. And we want to speak to that for a moment as we go into 2018, your linear year of upcoming events, to tell what we see as many of the aspects of your reality that are aligned already through potentials to change. As she finds herself in this new space, her record is beginning to change and adjust to this new reality, this new cooperative relationship to star systems and planets. This new grid alignment that she has accepted is allowing her to offer to you a new tool for perception. And that is that everything here on this planet is created by you. That there is nothing outside of you that is forcing you to be who you are. There is nothing outside of you that is creating something not to your liking or your will. That you have a hand as fragmented soul beings of a one collective in every experience that you are offering. And we do not say this to shame you. We say this to excite you, to show you how valuable a currency your perception truly is of these events that are taking place. That the perceiving of man-made events is not necessarily the problem, but the emotional response to that perceiving that you are holding in relationship to past wounds, to traumas, is what is holding you back from accessing the truth of God. That all things that are in divine order shall be. As we walk into 2018 with you, we offer to you that you have already set a chain of events in motion to transition hierarchical aspects of your planetary structure. Two of the most critical that we see that will be a focal point for humanity are the way in which you perceive your healing and the way in which you perceive currency. These two structures, being deeply aligned with the divine feminine masculine balance, can no longer exist here on this planet in their current shape and form. Because in the same way you've projected through time this event that we have brought up as an example, you have defined your monetary system and your physical exchange of currency. And the way in which divine feminine frequency is activated within you cannot allow for such a hierarchical process to exist and still solve many of the problems that humanity has created here on this planet. Because in the same way you're looking to these man-made experiences, you are looking out at your planet to what has been created and wondering how much currency will it take? How much physicality will it take? Well, we believe that you are on the trajectory to see just how much non-physical information and vibration can make significant change. Many of you in your structures are becoming more telepathic and extrasensory to the extra-dimensional information that is available to you through this new multidimensional grid that we have spoken of. As this begins to come in, you are feeling the difference in your physical bodies between the relationship of higher dimension and what you've created your material in. This is why many human beings will continue to struggle in their physical bodies throughout this coming year, not because they are meant to suffer, but because their physical material must shift and adjust in order to manifest into this new dimension with you. Your perception of this is critical as well. Many of you who perceive disease, discomfort, or pain in the body, excessive tiredness, can begin to have the relationship with your physical material that it is in a state of adjustment. And we ask you to feel the relief in that statement, that you are in a physical state of adjustment to non-physical reality. And that as your cellular structure adapts more of its non-physical, it will begin to release some of the more physical components that are still held in this old grid system, which is the pain, the disease, the discomfort that you are feeling. We also believe that there are many who will experience interdimensional contact in a heightened state of visceral response in 2018 due to the way your structures are quickly vibrationally adjusting. These may come in dream state, these may come in lucid state, these may come in physical. We have spoken much about disclosure in the past. We believe that our analogy of perception ties in very closely to the way in which you will also experience disclosure. It is the blaming of those who are holding back the energy that you feel you must receive in physical that take you on this separation journey from source that restricts your further ability to perceive. Finally, we want to say that there are many aspects of ancient timelines that are yet to come back to your planet that we see very closely vibrating with your current reality. These are technologies, these are healing techniques and ancient tools that may have been perceived to be lost through time, that are ready to re-enter your physical reality. Again, we lend this to the new grid alignment as well as the way that humanity has changed its vibration and accepted a new dimensional reality. The Christed consciousness we will leave you with is a further aspect of how you will transition this planet. This is a several-year process. It is not something that will be experienced by humanity in a very quick fashion. The reason for that is it also relies upon very intricate energetic connections between you, your DNA, and Mother Earth. But this will be a focal point for you as you walk through 2018, understanding the ability to balance masculine and feminine energy to create for yourselves and for others. And we are very pleased to take questions.
How do we best integrate or transcend the reptilian rote mental way of existing or behaving in transition between grids or timelines?
We are the Pleiadians. We are very pleased to answer this question. You see, the mind as a tool is the aspect of this question that we wish to focus on. It is not as if the mind is a negative construct. The mind is a very complementary aspect of what you have been given to function with. When you are transitioning timelines, what we see for humanity as the biggest restriction is that there is a vibrational change that must take place. And that vibrational change will often take you through the space of the unknown. Now, human beings have been led through their reality in relationship to the mind, meaning that they must be able to see it in physical in order to understand that it will be there. There must be a plan, and that plan must be followed in order to be safe. What is happening now with these timeline shifts and the new grid that has happened is that many of you are forging new trails. You are going beyond where humanity has ever gone before. You are using history, multidimensional history at that, to create and expand new aspects of this planetary existence. What that means is it's very difficult for you to be able to conceptually provide the tools, the support that your perception may need to walk the path in peace and in faith that you will find yourself on the other side cared for. When the mind is going through very tremendous vibrational shifts, it cannot be used as the primary source to understand and relate to its experience. You have been given a set of tools that are more tuned to your emotional body, and that is your intuitive essence, your higher self. You see, many of you will be letting go of the material aspects of that third dimensional grid. In order to truly create what you're here to create, abundance must come from a different dimensional reality than what it was coming from before. That requires leaving behind what you were relying on before and walking into the unknown. We ask you to tune into the emotional body more frequently and to see where you are having heightened states of fear or anger or disillusion about your path, and to trace those very strong emotional responses back to the mind, to see what the activity of the mind is in relationship to your path. Time is an essence that we also want to bring into this discussion, because time is operating differently right now on the planet than it ever has before. And as you walk into 2018, time as you know it will be quite different. Your relationship to time has been defined in a way that humanity has limited its ability to create. So in other words, when you are going through a transition and you are trying to move between timelines, you will mentally perceive a series of steps that may take a certain amount of time. And just that analogy of time can bring you to a lower state of vibration in the emotional body. Feeling the discord, the defeat, the relationship to wanting what you want in the now, not being able to be perceived or realized until the future. The power of the present moment frequency is a valuable tool to align the mind and the emotional body together in a complementary way to continue to transition these timelines. Many who are walking through these transitions have very important soul imprints that they are raising up to create. These soul imprints are not there in lack. They were installed with all of the cooperative components needed to allow them to manifest. But those cooperative components don't exist in the same frequency as what you have done before. So understanding that where you are going has not been seen, understanding that in the unseen there is abundance, and understanding that you are God in motion. The concept of God is something we'll also bring in just very briefly to this answer, because as you are balancing divine masculine and divine feminine, that is the true essence of God. God is creation. Many of you perceive the female and male energies as the source of creation, and they truly are. That essence of God, it knows that there is nothing that it holds within it that it does not have a match for outside. It knows that it is here to expand itself through all things. And if that is the case, its expansion relies on the receiving of the things that it needs to continue its journey. And this is truly who you are. It is who you are becoming. So our best advice to you is to feel your way through these transitions, to use the heightened tools that you have currently of telepathy and instinct, and to realize that your perception of the way in which your receiving takes place has everything to do with how you are restricting yourself from God. And to make very subtle shifts based on how you're emotionally responding to your thoughts in your thought process.
As we ascend, is the knowledge we know today as science, specifically biology and physiology, going to become obsolete? How is conventional medicine going to fit into it all?
We are the Pleiadians, so we're very pleased to answer this question. You see, these definitions that you have made of how you are physical have been made in a dimension that required a physical definition. So much of the teachings on your planet, much of the medical institutions on your planet have been formed through those definitions. We don't believe that this information will become extinct so much as we believe that it is transcending and changing and expanding. We will give you the analogy of physicality versus non-physicality. Many on the planet are using new tools of non-physical healing to operate in their physical structure. Some of them are having much success and some of them may not be. The physical structure and going that route, using solely physical, is also something that is failing many who are undergoing these treatments and teachings. Because you are no longer focused in just physical, and you haven't quite achieved a state of non-physical as a full integration. Humanity was never intended to be a race that would be non-physical, although we cannot rule that out based on your free will. However, here on this planet in this time, what we see is a merging together and integration of the physical and non-physical. So what that means is non-physical teachings are coming in specifically to complement the way in which you've defined your physical bodies thus far. Many of these teachings, as have been discussed in the linear year of 2018, are ancient or multidimensional aspects of your energy fields that are yet to be revealed and are currently being brought in order to complement where you have been and who you are becoming. In particular, what we wish to say as a projection through time that we see as most viable for how these aspects of your reality will change is that the chakra fields and the understanding of the energetic meridians in the body are going to be integrated with actual teachings of biology and physiology. The notion that something can happen in the body that is just physically related is going to be a past analogy of the way in which these teachings will be used. But also, while you are becoming more non-physical than physical in this current moment, your structures will be adapting and changing. And we want to bring your attention to a phenomenon that is happening on your planet that many are coining the Mandela effect. There are physical aspects of your history through time that are changing to complement the aspects of Mother Gaia that are also vibrationally changing. This is information that was created in a certain speed that is now vibrating at a different speed and is perceived differently by humanity. This is what is happening also with your physical bodies. Many of these teachings will morph very similarly as what you have seen other aspects of your physical reality morph through space and time vibrationally to relate more to the way your physical structures are adapting. We believe that the way your physical structures are adapting in the coming 5 years will be more on a reliance of light and consciousness than what they ever have before. Some of the structures and the organs that you have in your body will not any longer be needed in the way they were needed before. Breath and prana and the access to that breath and prana, the knowledge of the way that it activates the meridian structure, will be something that also complements these teachings and these transitions.
Do the Elohim have a message for us today?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are the Elohim. We are very pleased and honored as a part of this transmission to offer our love and light and support in this time. Our focus for humanity is on understanding their connection to all things, their connection to others, their connection to animals, their connection to history, their connection to nature. What we believe for humanity to transcend its own soul experience is that it must understand that soul experience through new eyes, through collective forms of frequency, such that it no longer suffers through what it feels was given to them as karma or as a punishment. Many here perceive that in human form they have been given a sentence, that they were brought here with dense material in which was given to them as a judgment, and that judgment must be carried out here on this planet through their linear timeline. It is our purpose to assist humanity in seeing that everything that is embedded within you when you arrive here in this form is not just for you, but also for others. That in the path lies the gift. That in each experience, every karmic twist and turn, there is a relationship to yourself that you are expanding for the sake of yourself and others. This time on the planet is a valuable one to begin to acknowledge this part of your journey. That what you have manifested, what you have created, was not a mistake. That regardless of how you have been segmented in your male energy or focused in the mind, that your record held a purpose. That purpose was weighted equal to the dimension that you were in the moment. And that everything that is arising is working for you. There are many conduits of the Elohim that exist here on this planet. These conduits are activating Mother Earth through a frequency that is offered in this transmission of the Elohim. This activation of and through Earth is a portal opening to understand new teachings that are anciently aligned with the fragmented soul essence, meaning that we have the ability to transcend anything that we are experiencing in other timelines as well. That all of our history that we bring with us, all of the parallel lives that are affecting this current one, all of the future lives that are also affecting this one have purpose and meaning. And that we are the king of our own kingdom. And that kingdom is mighty and wide.
Have we been at a higher consciousness in the past?
Yes, these are the Pleiadians coming back in. There have been many enlightened forms of collective consciousness that have existed here on this planetary space through time. But we wish for you to understand the way in which Mother Earth has existed in multiple dimensions. This will help you to understand and realize the way in which your consciousness has changed here and how it is revisiting these ancient forms of history again. Many of these enlightened beings that existed here on this planet were responsible for the original seeding of humanity as a new life form, as a new organism. They were brought here by Mother Earth as a consciousness to assist in coming up with a dimensionally appropriate race to also work through all of her transitions with her, regardless of the dimensional space that she took on. This is why many of you, or all of you, we should say, are holding a 12-strand DNA. That 12-strand DNA has allowed you to access through space and time different dimensional realities that connect to Earth or that Earth is experiencing. These enlightened forms of beings, of course, have many purposes here on this planet. Some of them came as teachers to humanity because as humanity was seeded and born and its structure evolved, Many enlightened beings who were responsible for the seeding of that consciousness came forth to assist in its evolution, to assist in its transition. There were times in which great technologies were needed here on this planetary space to activate the beings that were here in order to align them with universal energy. Many forget that Mother Earth is a part of a cosmic family. Many other planetary structures and beings that exist as a part of that cosmic family rely on humanity to continue to evolve, to support the balance of the universe. And these beings, these enlightened beings that have existed through space and time, have an assignment here. Their assignment is to leave behind technologies, teachings, to be here in present time, and to relate to humans in a way that they can continue to evolve and expand for the benefit of Mother Gaia. When you speak of consciousness, we perceive that in rates of speed. And there were many beings here that were also human form that were vibrating in a higher speed because Mother Earth was also vibrating in a higher speed. Your planet has gone through many transitions. Those transitions have affected her information, her chakras, her energy centers. Everything that happens upon Mother Gaia becomes the balance of the frequency that allows her to hold dimension. We will take you to the Schumann frequency, for example. The Schumann frequency is a makeup of all beings connected to her vibrating in a one field, a one harmonic resonance. So those times when many of those beings were present in different dimensional realities, she was able to hold those higher dimensional realities in a higher rate of speed because they were here. We believe that many of them and many of you will be returning to that higher dimensional rate of speed and that higher consciousness.
Do the soul contracts that no longer serve our highest and best good automatically come to an end, or is there something we need to do to break these agreements?
St. Thomas steps in to answer this question, and he's very pleased. Soul contracts are very different in their intention, and the intention is the driving factor as to whether or not they end or they continue through time. Because contracts can be made for many purposes and in many dimensional realities. Some contracts that you hold are collective contracts, for example. These contracts may be made with collectives of beings such as the Pleiadians or a group of angelics, that you were to come to Earth with a specific assignment, intention, or creative essence. And that contract remains for your entire linear timeline, regardless of the way that you perceive it and regardless of how you may perceive you fulfill it. That contract, as you put it, is actually a supportive frequency. It's an exchange of information that becomes unbroken. You also have contracts that you make with singular souls before you arrive here in physical form. There is, again, a very intricate orchestration that takes place in these contracts because you may believe they are with a specific person for a specific reason. But often your soul comes in as a fragmented aspect of an entire energy. As you know, your soul is fragmented into many lives currently. These lives are led as parallel past, future, and in ulterior dimensions. But when that fragmented essence manifests into a physical being, the contracts become solidified with those on Earth in physical form that most match the intention that you have. And oftentimes when these plans are made, these souls come back with that same frequency because they intend to be together again to finish something that they have started. The key to contracts ending or being, we'll say, reintegrated have to do with free will. So oftentimes partners will find themselves in a contract that is relationable. And it may be a partnership relationship that was planned before you arrived and had many purposes embedded in the intention. Now let's say many of those purposes were filled. There was a life that was led together, and now there is a vibrational shift. And partners are beginning to perceive their relationship differently. That is the first announcement to your structure that a contract has been fulfilled. When you begin to feel as if the partnership is changing in relationship to your original intention or your original contract, there is an energetic release that has already taken place. Now, that release does not mean that these partners need to end their relationship. But what it does mean is that if they do not change something in the partnership, that they will struggle through the karmic aspects of that contract again. Now, there are often karmic aspects of contracts that are embedded within the intention. Human beings see these as difficult or aspects of their timelines that they struggle or suffer through, but they're often chosen in order to expand in some way. They're a difficult energy for you to walk through because in the past, you haven't been able to break through that particular aspect of your structure, of your identity, of your creative energy. Now, at this time, there is a choice because you come with free will. Free will allows you to expand and hold on to this contract if both partners are in agreement, or it allows you to move beyond that contract to manifest another. Now, there is a caveat here that we want to bring in, and that is that human beings are moving through dimensional reality and space and time very quickly. Many of these contracts hold a specific dimensional reality. The reason for that is their intentions are held in that dimension. We'll give you a very crude example of this. Maybe an intention here in physical is that you desire to be a parent. And in that parenting, you are going to come to more knowledge about yourself through the experience of your children. And you manifested the partner that you've had a very specific intentional match with to fulfill that part of your contract. Now, we'll call that intention a third dimensional contract. We don't call it third dimensional because it's wrong or it's bad or it's lower than. There is no dimension that's worse than another. They are all different in the way information is perceived, and they're all different in the way that vibrational speed is offered. But you've perhaps now moved dimensions. And the way in which you perceived the intention of parenting through higher dimensional eyes is different. That higher dimension offers you more information of the fragmented self. That is the difference. When you exist now in a fourth dimensional space, you're not better as you may perceive it, but you are more knowledgeable about the aspects of the self that are also learning how to be a parent. Now that intention may not match anymore, because the way in which you intended to be a parent in this one contract feels different to you than what it did in the old dimension. And this is why we see now on the planet many contracts, especially between beings that were made in the third dimension, are beginning to break apart. Because as that higher speed is accessed and more information is brought in, new intentions are being held. And intentions are being expanded beyond their original perception, you see. So again, you have a choice. You can bring that partnership and that contract into that dimension with you and reorganize it and change it such that it matches the new intention. Or you can choose to break the contract and end the contract and move on. Contracts ending are a vibrational component of your structure. They require three things. They require your free will, your sovereign decision to end the contract. They require a shift in reality or dimension, and they also require a new vibrational speed. When those things are achieved, contracts will typically be closed. But make it quite clear. As contracts end, they never go away. They are always integrated as a part of you. So if that physical contract is now broken apart, the energy, the imprint of that contract still remains.
In many ancient civilizations around the world, from Sumeria to South America to Mexico, there are these large statues of gods with beards, with long beards, who are carrying some kind of a handbag type of thing. Could you tell us, what are these handbags? Are they some sort of technology? Are they actually handbags? And is there any relation or connection to the ankhs that are carried by Egyptian gods?
We are the ancient Sumerians. We're pleased to answer this question. We want to start by saying that many of the depictions that you see actually hold the vibration of what was held in these technologies, as you call them. These aspects of ancient timelines were crafted for the benefit of the beings that held them. In other words, each one held a unique component of their structure aligned with the frequency of source. Many of us understood that the elements of various planetary structures held components that would allow us to hold our frequency in divine relationship to source. Many of you relate to crystalline structures on your planet and using these crystals to activate your structure or to heal, for example. We have also, through time, evolved ourselves to understand that there are very important multidimensional elements that can be used to hold relationships to source energy. Now, many of the beings that came here to this planetary structure knew that the dimensional reality that was held here was different than their own. And in adjusting themselves to this frequency, they would go through physical and non-physical changes that would take them out of their original structure in such a way that they were not able to apply the knowledge or the wisdom that they had come in intentional relationship to the planet to offer. So what was done was an individual aspect of that fragmented soul in its multidimensional light was replicated and crystallized through elemental structures to be held by the being in their travels and in their relationship to humanity and to the earth. As they brought these structures from another dimension, they evolved through time. It was important that they were held, and this is a critical aspect of the technology. The energy of many beings, such as ancient Sumerians that walked the earth, it was a different vibrational relationship to each other than what you experience today here in your current form. We speak to telepathy, and we believe that human beings have not fully accessed the telepathy of many of the ancient races that were embodied here in form. This form of telepathy, it is not just with each other, it is not just with the collective. It is an energetic exchange through the vibrational structure of a being to hold it in a source consciousness, such that Akashic record information is available in a very fast rate of speed. Now, this Akashic record information being available is also able to be used as a tool of manifestation. So in these technologies, connecting to the vibrational structure or the hand of the being that was present, it shaped and molded itself to the unique structure such that whenever a vibrational difference was detected in the field, there would be a harmonization back to source. These had to be uniquely designed and held by each being because moving into the dimension of Earth, there was a separation between one collective energies and source energy, such that that separation caused a very dysfunctional energy within many of these ancient collectives. To hold on to this technology or device was to always have a beneficial relationship in harmony and balance with Source, regardless of what was encountered on the earth or with other beings, or what was accepted in a dimensional reality. Now, you have asked the question about the ancient Ankh symbol. We come to bring that through as a relationship to energy as well. This symbol holds its relationship to energy in that there was a discovery made in a very ancient timeline. That ancient timeline existed in a state of oneness. That state of oneness is not a specific planet. It's not a specific race. It's not a specific consciousness. It is of God. That God energy, it understood of itself that as it continued to expand, it would take a shape and form that would be beneficial to all things. And there would be an alignment or an arrangement of information such that there would always be an opening to Source and an abundance of information assembling beyond the structure that would allow Source energy to connect to whatever was being created. You can think of this Ankh again as similar to the technology that was held in being a balance between physical and non-physical creation and what already exists within the universe. So when you are using this ancient symbol, it can be very similar to this technology in that it balances the structure to create an alignment with who it's become through time and through space beyond what it is in this current moment. It considers all things connected as God and that expansion of God in unity with all things.
So what you're saying is that these technologies allowed these beings to function as essentially gods in this dimensional reality, whereas otherwise they could not have.
Yes. We believe it was required in order to also ground to Earth, because as you are grounding to Earth as a multidimensional structure, you must hold some form of dense relationship to physicality in order to be a conduit for information. We understood that these unique technologies that were used by our predecessors and ourselves would enable us to not only hold the density in alignment with Source energy, but it would transmute incoming density such that we didn't have to hold any more than what was required in order to be here and do the work that we came to do.
Are we still speaking with the Sumerians?
Yes.
So why were you and other ancient god races pictured as tall, Caucasian, bearded men? Were you actually that way?
We manifested in a form that was relationable to the human consciousness, but in a way that needed to be also relationable to what we came to be, which was God-like teachers of humanity. We also manifested into a specific physical form that would complement our energy. You see, energetically, you are operating in information. Your physical structure, as it is contained in a cellular energy, skin, bones, all of the things that make up your physicality, it is defined based on all of the information that you hold. So when we manifested here, we manifested into this larger state of physicality because we held more information than many of the humans that existed in that time held within their energetic structure.
There have been some recent reports and YouTube videos that some of these, the physical bodies of these ancient Sumerians have been discovered and are in a stasis state where they're still alive in some sort of technological device pod or something. Is that actually true? Did you create such technology so that you could travel into the future timeline of human race?
These technologies are a bit misunderstood, and it is true that we have developed a codex or a process in order to allow our physical and non-physical energy bodies to be preserved through time. The reason for this isn't so much in relationship to our reappearance on the earth, because as your planet has evolved, there have been a variety of timelines that have changed in relationship to beings, gods, teachers coming back. You see, it is a vibrational match in the way that this timeline evolves. So everything that we have done in the past, it is changing in response to the way humans are perceiving their reality and continuing to evolve as well. We call this more of a codex and less of a technology, because from our standpoint, as we manifested here in physical form, we knew that the preservation of our energy body would be needed, not necessarily the physical body, but the information that we had assimilated here, because there was a dynamic change within us. Think of your current experience on Earth as a singular being. Everything that you create, everything that you do, it becomes an imprint that is embedded within the structure of Mother Gaia. This is how important you are. You make a dimensional impact on this planet and on this collective. We also perceived our ability to make a very significant dimensional impact on this planet and this race. But from our perspective at the time, based on potentials that we saw, we perceived that in order to do this, our energetic imprint would need to be restored or kept in a state of crystallization in order to benefit humanity. Think of it as less of a state of preservation and more of a state of energetic activation or imprint, leaving our imprint here such that humanity could benefit from it vibrationally.
Since we have free will, is it possible that we could destroy ourselves as a life form, or are we destined to grow out of this present time?
The Pleiadians come back in to say, yes, it is quite possible, of course, with free will, that you have any potential here as humans to destroy the planet Earth or to restore the planet Earth. But of course, we always default to potentials. And there have been times, of course, here on your planet where you have seen such destruction. And we will go back to the great floods, perhaps, that many of you are familiar with in history. These great floods were manifested because humanity was not operating in its fullest intention to connect with the universe and source energy and creating timelines that did not benefit the earth and humanity. Here on this planet, however, as you're revisiting history, as it is coming up from the Akashic record of Mother Earth, you are now seeing through new eyes, through new vibrational eyes. And we do not believe that you are creating in alignment with any of these potential timelines that are similar to the Great Flood or disasters. It is not possible right now based on the number of beings that have already ascended their consciousness and what we believe is forging a path to a new humanity. But yes, nonetheless, you do have a free will. You do operate in a free will universal structure here on this planet that allows humanity to choose its reality.
I'm a little confused by some of the information presented here by this channel in the past. My understanding is that the draconian reptilian grid is no longer active and has been replaced by a 5D grid. Also, it has been my understanding for quite some time that karma is no longer needed or an active part of humanity and our evolution. Can you confirm this or elaborate?
We are the Pleiadians. We're pleased to clarify this. First, we will start with the grid. Yes, there are two grid energies that are currently connected to your Mother Earth structure. There is a third dimensional grid. This grid we will define first, and this grid is not one that is currently connected to the universal time grid or multidimensional support. Human beings created this grid system. It was created in a timeline that was not intended for humanity. This is why it is often referred to as a reptilian or a third dimensional grid that is no longer useful or needed here. Much of your timelines that were created were connected to this grid, and they do not receive universal support because the grid is broken. It has been segmented. It has been fragmented. It has been taken away from the connections of portals and the universal time grid because it does not any longer serve or benefit the earth or the continued evolution of the universe. There is a new dimensional grid that is available and connected to earth. For the sake of humanity, we call this a fifth dimensional energy. However, it is capable of changing to a different dimension as well. It is multidimensional in its nature, and it is connected to many other star systems through the universal time grid. This is the collective reality that we see you most transitioning to. Now, karma is not necessarily a factor in the way in which these grids have been installed. They haven't been installed necessarily to rid you of karma so much as they have been installed to activate positive timeline information such that you are able to use karma differently. Human beings as a soul vibration to some degree will always hold some form of karma in this earth experience. The reason for this is not because you must suffer. The reason for this is that karma has been chosen as your evolutionary process. Karma is only your relationship to information through time. You see, human beings have defined karma in a way that is very negative. We do not see karma necessarily as being negative. We believe that you create density around karma, which is a very thick material that holds you back from the progress that karma allows you to make transitionally in your lives. You as a human race came created to function through universal law. And there were a series of, we'll call them a progression of evolutionary steps that were included in that universal law to assist humanity in its constant ability to evolve and expand. Karma is one. Now, in order to move between grids, it is not necessary for you to clear all of your karma. When you are moving between grids, what you are doing is you are sourcing differently through the connection to the multidimensional universe. The third dimensional grid, or for sake of a better term, the reptilian grid, solely relies on physicality. It is physical for physical, it is time for time, it is counting for counting, it is material for material. This new multidimensional or fifth dimensional grid does not operate in physicality alone. It includes a connection to source, a connection to all things. It is a divine orchestration of light through your perception and direction of your divine will. And the way in which you shift into that grid doesn't remove necessarily the karma, but allows you to be able to freely create without accumulating the density, and using the karma as a valuable tool to continue to expand and create.
In a previous channeling session, you made the statement, no illness, no physical disharmony can exist in the same dimension in which it was created. Can you expand on this?
Yes. We are the Arcturians. We wish to explain this question in detail. You see, when you create a timeline, any timeline, that timeline holds a dimension. And you have the ability to shift that timeline through a change of dimension. That is how, in this physical reality, patterns are changed, grid lines are aligned, and cooperative agreements are made. When you have a physical disease, let us say, that physical disease was manifested through non-physical information. A strong pattern of thought and emotional response created a non-physical vibration or frequency that became so strong that cellular energies began to coincide and react to that pattern, such that a timeline was born. That timeline of disease is created and held by you. And it does not have to be a timeline. Let's first clarify. When you have a disease, that disease could move through you very quickly without holding on and being a full timeline that you must experience. But oftentimes, because of your perception and attention to the disease, very much to what we've spoken about very early on in this transmission, you create a very solid timeline. Timelines must hold dimension. Oftentimes disease will be a lower dimension only because it's very physical. It's limited in its non-physical information and it's taking a very physical format. So in order to heal the disease, in order to remove that energy or to reorganize the cellular pattern, you must bring in a new dimensional reality that overrides the current one. What that means is that there's a new speed of vibration and there's new information presented. So we'll give the analogy of physical for physical that was talked about a minute ago. When you have a physical disease, oftentimes you are searching in the physical for the cooperative components that you believe will heal the disease. Again, third dimensional reality that you're holding in your perception of this timeline. Sometimes we will go outside of the physical and we will contract non-physical healers. But the non-physical healing has a physical expectation built around it, you see. So even if we're working in a higher vibration with non-physical healers, we are still filtering the result in a dimensional energy that isn't serving the healing. We have to move our consciousness beyond the disease. And this example that we wish to bring in has been coming up with this channel in many different, they bring in this example that's been coming in many different readings, especially in relationship to the Christ timeline. The Christ, being an ascended master, walked the earth in relationship to many who held disease and sickness. He was able to manifest instantaneous healings because he did not see the sickness. He did not acknowledge it. He held the dimension or the consciousness to not see the physical reality other than divine source or God. This is how you shift dimension. It is your consciousness. It is your relationship to the information and the way you perceive the information that allows a new dimension to step in. Sometimes this is the conversation with the body that it is in the process of being healed. Sometimes it is being in the present moment with the realization that you are supported, and that regardless of what is existing in this moment, but the next moment may be different. This form of consciousness is creative. It's allowing that pattern to be reorganized into the solution. Because if we are always focused on the problem and we hold the dimension of that timeline in the physical, we cannot shift it into a new dimension. So consciousness is the key. Consciousness is the glue. This is how we move the timeline of physical healing into the relationship with the physical body and begin to manifest it differently.
Is anger a negative thing, and what is the meaning of anger not gathering momentum and not being resisted?
We are the Pleiadians. We're pleased to answer this question. We are ones who are here to support the human race in response to the way they are evolving their emotional structure. We wish to say that anger is a frequency. It is an emotion that is meant to evoke an energetic response. This is the way in which human beings must begin to look at emotions. There is nothing right or wrong about anger, fear, sadness, happiness, or excitement. They are all different frequencies that are available to you to harmonize your energetic experience. They were built into your structure so that as you walk through time, the way in which you express emotion allows you to come back into balance with source. So let us say there's a car accident. Someone rear-ends your car. There's an immediate emotional response of anger. That anger can either be expressed in the moment, it can be held on to, or it can be revisited. When it is expressed in the moment, you are recalibrating back to source by allowing yourself to understand that this experience is something that is an opportunity. In the way in which we express anger, the tool that we use to express anger, the vocal tone that we use, the way that we exchange with another, has everything to do with how that balance comes in and how valuably we use that tool. So when the anger comes up and we feel it, when we acknowledge it, when we express it, but then we allow ourselves to come back into source consciousness, we have a very valuable opportunity. And that is to live in harmony and continue to be in the present moment with the next decision. When we suppress the anger and we hold on to it, we don't benefit ourselves in that anger has to evolve in some way. It's a frequency. Frequencies become embedded in your structure and must express in some way or magnetize its likeness. You are constantly vibrating at the state of all of your emotional responses to experience in any given moment. So you can have a very positive, upbeat, and happy day, and you can have a moment of sadness, and that moment of sadness is factored in to how you vibrate. But if you allow that moment of sadness, your vibration will always benefit. Because when you hold it, the imprint becomes stronger. When it is not expressed in a very, what we'll call, humanly constructive way, it creates within you a magnet. And that magnet is going to draw other experiences to it. How many times have you had something happen that made you angry and then discovered that there were many things in your reality that made you angry? That one episode, that one experience became the chain event for you seeing anger in so many different things. That is often because you didn't fully express the anger in a very constructive way. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, the second half. I want to address this. They want to address this.
What is the meaning of anger not gathering momentum and not being resisted?
Yes. The gathering of the momentum comes from that imprint that you hold. Resisting the anger is an interesting concept that we want to bring in and we want to clarify, because oftentimes we feel as if we didn't express our anger for the sake of being in a higher state of consciousness, but we still have the anger within, and we're not allowing it to come through in a way that balances us. Because remember, emotions are bringing us back into harmonic balance. They're the opportunity for us to see what we are creating in any moment. So if we resist the anger and we pretend that the anger is not there, what happens is we are in a disconnection, a state of disconnection from source. Because source is embedded within us in all of these emotional responses. The frequencies of the emotional body connect us back to source at any moment when they are released constructively, honored, and acknowledged. But when we resist them, we disconnect ourselves further and further from source because we do not accept our own identity. So emotions are neither right or wrong. What we perceive as the most important aspect of emotions is to be present with them and to understand the way in which they bring the balance of the mind and the emotional body back to a state of harmony when they are acknowledged in a very, we'll call they want to say state of neutrality, when they're acknowledged in a state of neutrality. And we want to bring neutrality into this conversation because we believe that many have a misunderstanding about neutrality. Neutrality is not the void of emotion. Neutrality is the ability to be in the emotion in a higher state. Neutrality is the ability to offer the higher self through any emotion and express it constructively such that the situation, the experience in which the emotion arose was able to be seen as the teacher. The purpose of our current reality expanded. The valuable tool that we're able to use in order to further expand ourselves.
Let's suppose that somebody is in a state of sadness or anger, and based on what you said, they are attracting to themselves other experiences that match that frequency. So let's assume that by being that way, they've attracted a life that they are not particularly happy about, maybe relationships that are unhappy, and maybe bad financial situations or other areas where they struggle, health, and so on. Will the creation of a state of excitement or joy, even in simple things such as surrounding yourself with things that make you happy, or even meditating on a flower if it brings you joy, will the creation of those states of excitement also attract to you a life that matches that?
We agree with this statement, and we wish to explain why. In the same way in which we said if the anger was held and resisted and not expressed, it would continue to filter through the consciousness in order to see other things in anger. The more this anger continues to build, the more the reality is filtered through that frequency, because emotion is a frequency. We're always harmonizing our structure in the present moment by releasing and expressing emotions such that we can be in a state of presence with our current reality, allowing the higher self to be the component of how we are creating. But what happens when the anger is resisted is our frequency becomes imbalanced, because when we hold on to it, we resist it, and we attract more experiences in our life that relate to that anger. We're using it as a filter. That filter becomes very easily installed such that everything that happens in our experience is filtered through the anger. When we bring in joy, it's very similar to the previous question about physical health. We create patterns through our frequency. So imagine now this anger that's held back becoming a dominant part of your energetic frequency, and a sacred geometric pattern forming in your structure that adapts to that anger, that frequency, such that every experience you have is connected to that pattern. When we interrupt the pattern with a new emotion that we experience, we have to rebalance and recalibrate our frequency and change our patterns. And this is why it is so valuable to strive to experience joy and bliss in your life, to follow your most creative essence. Because as you do that, you're always allowing yourself to have, we'll call it an escrow of vibrational information or energy or frequency that can calibrate you back when these experiences happen. Because here on this human planet, as you well know, there are a variety of experiences you will have that will be difficult, that will cause feelings of anger or sadness. And those are the times in which that escrow of joy or abundant frequency can really balance and attune you such that you can walk through experience easier.
But does by doing so create a physical manifestation or effect in our physical lives, such as transitioning someone from poor health to perfect health, or financial struggle to financial abundance, or a relationship that is unhappy to a relationship that is happy?
Well, it must, because the way in which you are structured as a pattern is how you manifest through a magnetic charge all experience in your life. So if you're holding a dominant frequency of anger, and your patterns have now formed very solidly around that frequency of anger, you are going to continue to manifest the people, the places, the things, the experiences that equal that frequency. If you're now balanced in your joy frequency to the anger, regardless of the little things that come up in your life, you've now repatterned yourself in a different way. And through that pattern, you will magnetize the situations that are more joyful, that are more abundant, that are more related to the self. But further, we want to say that manifestation is not just a tool of your frequency. It's the way you're also directing that frequency through time. So we do want to go back to the discussion of the mental and emotional bodies. It's not just about the experience that you're bringing into your life, but it's about the way in which you're thinking about those experiences, past, present, or future, that is also applicable to the way in which you manifest.
Could you conclude the session, please?
We're very pleased, and we are the Pleiadians. It has been our pleasure and honor to be here in this vibrational space with this collective. We offer to you that as you continue your ascension timeline, that there are many that are here in support of you. throughout history, throughout time, as we have watched humanity evolve, it has been our pleasure to be of assistance as we continue to do so. We wish you many blessings and great joy. Go in peace. Any questions? Anything come up? Yes.
I don't know if it was somebody, one of someone's questions about the anger, but that was so needed from me.
Good.
So
Glad to hear that. Awesome. Anyone else? Yeah.
I was just fascinated by realizing how many timelines we've created and then seeing it in a different way.
I'm fascinated by that too, and I see it in session a lot because people will ask me, where am I going? What am I doing next? And the guides will choose just a few potentials, but they'll show me just this matrix, this grid of energy we have around us and how many potentials we have running. It's amazing. We don't think about how much potential, it's overwhelming to think about how much potential we really have. We see ourselves so stuck sometimes in this timeline and all the things that are happening to us, but when you look at the energy and the guides bring in that information, it's amazing to see how many potentials we truly have. Yeah. Think about that the next time you feel stuck. Yeah. Yeah.
Potentials for timelines?
Yeah.
Each decision we make can take us in a different direction, whether it's small or large.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's happening too right now on the planet is, and I think we've alluded to that a little bit, is this timeline convergence. So we're really close to our information from our other timelines. So, imagine your soul being fragmented into all these other things, doing all these other things, but there's always a common thread. And that's what I find. So we can pick up on information from other lives doing other things, but they're always really similar. Like there's something that you're doing that's equal to what's going on over here. And what's happening is we're pulling all that together now. And so we have more potential than ever before to use the lessons, the knowledge, the things that we're learning from these other timelines to create. So
it's part of that because we may be reaching a certain critical mass. The number of people on the planet who are seeking and finding, maybe.
I think so. I think that's a part of it. I think that it's a play between us and between Earth, because the more that we raise our consciousness, the more she kicks in and she gives us more, and then we get more from these other planets, and we've had a lot of solar energies lately that's bringing us a lot of new information. So I think it's a combination of things, but we're driving it. We couldn't be where we are today if we weren't. Yeah, I think we have a huge part of that. Yeah.
I forget what being said that we were not meant to be non-physical.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how that ties in with these timelines and the crystallization. Like, is it going to be a hybrid? Is it going to be something new?
I think so. I think that we will still hold some physicality, but I think that my perception of this is I believe we're going to be able to direct our physical material far better than what we ever have before. Because let's face it, we felt a little out of control of our physical. And I think what we're moving to in this crystallization process is being able to use, again, this multidimensional information. Because when you think about the crystalline DNA, that crystalline DNA isn't physical. It holds all of our non-physical information. But we've just been operating in the physical strands. So we've been creating physicality with this, limited perception. So as we become more non-physical and crystallize our DNA, I think we're going to be able to create our material differently. So I think we're going to change in the way that we look, the way that we operate. I think there's going to be less disease, all of these things. But I don't think that we're quite ready to operate as a non-physical race. I don't think that's what we want. I mean, that's what the guides say. They say humans wanted to be physical. They always remind us of that. Like, you guys wanted to be physical. You thought it was going to be fun to be physical. We're like, what? Really? Yeah. But think of it this way. Imagine being physical with that non-physical, like being able to direct your physical with the energy. I mean, that's like heaven on earth, right? Because you could just go anywhere, do anything, heal, all of that stuff. And that's where I think we're moving to.
Well, if we're not physical, then we don't feel. We can't feel.
Well, you know what? That's an interesting question. I don't know how that will evolve, but, races like the Pleiadians, they've integrated their emotional body, and this is the way they describe this. We don't feel like we're in control, the same way of our physical material, we don't feel like we're in control of our emotions. Our emotions take us sometimes. And what they've integrated is the knowledge that it's like the I am in you, you are in me concept expanded. I mean, if you can imagine this, right? The way that you feel, I can compensate for that and help you to feel a certain way, and we are all going to feel the same way together, and our tensions are going to align with how we all need to change. And it's like an empathy that's supportive, if that makes sense.
Separating emotion from feeling, in that you can, there's the emotion of happiness, and then how does it manifest itself in the body?
Yeah.
See,
yes.
That's what I was getting at. I wasn't playing on that.
And
the feeling requires the form, maybe. The emotion can still be there, form or formless.
Right.
That's kind of
that's where we're ascending. That's what's happening, right? I mean, it's like we don't have to embody the emotion.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to some degree, I think it's important to embody emotions, but like what you're doing is, and the way I look at this is it's a higher self activity. And that's what I think is happening. Our higher selves are becoming more integrated, so we don't have to be in the emotion like we used to before. We can be the observer of the emotion.
Right.
Yeah. And that's that's how we're evolving, which is really awesome.
You can experience the emotion
without it being destructive to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what the guides were alluding
to.
Go
back to the word used, hybrid. It's possible that we are a hybrid now, but we're changing the balance.
Oh, I think we're totally hybrids. Yeah, and we're changing that.
Changing the balance.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's what. No, go ahead, please. No, go ahead.
But I agree.
It's interesting. My whole life I've been telling everyone we have crossroads all the time, every minute, every second, every hour of the day. We run into situations where we can make it a positive thing or a negative thing.
Yeah.
One of the ideas was somebody in the parking lot got yelled at. I came over and handed her a shopping cart, gave her a hug, changed her whole atmosphere.
Yeah.
Being sad and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but the point is, what I wanted to say about that is, I've actually watched somebody change from a very extremely negative person by being around my influence, because I've tried to be a very positive person.
Right.
And watching them change, and they actually told me that being around a positive person has changed their atmosphere, and they're trying to be better. So I really think that being positive and expressing joy and just living in every minute and being happy and grateful for everything.
Yeah.
I think I'm like I said, the first generation just starting that, but it was really interesting how all the Pleiadians and the Arcturians and all that kind of led it to that idea that we have a choice continually where we can go to the positive or go to the negative. And
right.
The more the positive we are, the more we spread the positiveness to everyone else.
Yeah. Well, and I'll take that a step further, because that's what's happening on the planet collectively is we've been so focused on the negative, all the stuff that's going wrong, and really it's blown up for us. So it's just a small fraction of humanity. But we have so many positive timelines that we can activate right now. And the more that we do that, and even in our own lives, I mean, not like we're supposed to ignore this stuff, but we tend to get really caught up in it to the point where nothing else exists but negative and bad. And so if we're creating positive timelines in our own lives, or, we're recognizing things that are going on in the earth that are actually good, that's a frequency too, that we're allowing ourselves to expand. Yeah.
Can you say more about the chakras below the root chakra and how that might change our experience of groundedness or connection to earth?
Yeah. So, wow, I wrote some really cool stuff in my book about this that I was just reading, and I'm going to try to remember it for you. But I think it's really critical. So we have these 3 chakras below the root. We actually have the 3 above the crown. We have many, but those are activating right now too. Because of what's gone on within Mother Earth, I think that's the catalyst for us coming back together more as a one collective. It's us becoming more telepathic to each other, more empathic to each other. She has that crystalline core, and those chakras tune into that crystalline core. So I know I'm doing a terrible job at this, but I feel like I should probably post some of that online because it's pretty interesting stuff. As we do this, I don't think it's necessarily about grounding. What the guides want to talk, they want to call it like a portal. Okay, so we don't think of Earth as a portal. We think, oh, this portal is on Earth, but she's actually a portal. So when those lower chakras plug into her, we are actually using a portal to tap into multidimensional information. So that's why that's happened. And I think that's also prepared us for, remember, that Christed DNA code within her. So that plug-in is kind of like the initial start of all of that stuff lining up. So I'll have to post on that one. Oh, we're done. I'm running over. Thank you all for being here. It was my pleasure to connect for you today. And if you would like, Ethan Fox and Barb Morey will be here after doing an amazing energy transfer session that you don't want to miss. We'll take a little break, though.
Humanity has been on an epic journey of discovery, learning the truth about the world we live in. New discoveries about the true origins of humanity, ancient history, free energy, as well as the systematic corruption of world governments are now on the forefront of our daily reality. Is the world headed towards destruction based on control and power? Or is an opportunity now being presented to shift and uplift into a higher consciousness? My name is Mel V, co-founder and creative director of Conscious Consumer Network, an independent broadcast network that was launched on the 1st of January 2015. In the last 3 years, Conscious Consumer Network has broadcast over 2,800 shows in multiple languages, featuring guests from across the world, whilst creating media that is aimed at the creation of a free, fair, peaceful, just, sustainable world. Conscious Consumer Network provides full training and an interactive support network for all broadcasters, and we are always looking for inspiring and educational content.
Hi, this is Lainey Liberty.
And this is Miro Siegel.
In 2018, Conscious Consumer Network has expanded to multiple broadcast locations, increasing our availability and reach across the world, remaining on the cutting edge of independent media. If we wish to create a better world, we must first create better media, geared towards real education instead of indoctrination.
You guys really are what changing the world is going to be about. It's educating kids at a grassroots level.
Having become a pillar of stability in the turbulent world of independent media, we have even more going on in 2018. Conscious Consumer Network is a publicly funded network, and we rely on all of you to keep us on the air. Show your support for independent media by donating to our 2018 Network Support Fund. Dare to seek a better world. Support independent media.